Is now conceding, is now acknowledging publicly that January 6th was not a coordinated attack. It was not an insurrection. It was not an organized act of terrorism. It was not an effort to overthrow the government. And all of this is coming out in a series of interviews and perhaps leaks to Reuters. An article, "Exclusive FBI finds scant evidence U.S. Capitol attack was coordinated. Sources." Now, we've known for some time that not a single one of the January 6th protesters is charged with sedition or insurrection. Interestingly, they're not even charged with racketeering. Racketeering here refers to the kind of RICO statutes that allege a kind of organized conspiracy, people working together to create some sort of a massive illegal scheme. So the charges are severe in some cases, obstructing a government proceeding. Jacob Chansley, the so-called shaman guy with the horns, he's facing 28 years in prison for doing what? Basically prancing around and waving and shouting, but not fighting, not hurting anyone. So they're going after these people. But the point is they're now saying publicly that this was not organized. And it wasn't even organized, not even by Trump. Trump didn't organize it. And neither did these groups. Some of the groups may have coordinated beforehand. Some of them boasted, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But these were, the vast, vast majority of people in the Capitol were what the FBI itself calls one-offs, which means one guy who goes, I'll go in there, I'll see what's going on, I'll take some selfies, I'll then leave. Now, all of this is, think of the significance of this, because for months now, through the second Trump impeachment, through these various hearings, there has been constant references to an act of terrorism, to a seditious conspiracy, to insurrection. That's been the kind of guiding word. And think of all the responses to January 6th, the militarization of D.C., the presence of the army, automatic weapons on full display, third world style. All of this is because there was an insurrection. The Capitol Police who testified before Pelosi's kind of bogus task force. Insurrection, insurrection, insurrection. Words are really important here because you might remember going back through most of last year when these massive riots were going on around the country. And in some places like Portland, they never stopped. By and large, what the left was doing is sending out messages to the media. Don't call this a riot. Don't call this violent. And that's where you got all the rhetoric from CNN. Mostly peaceful protests, even though, you know, flames behind the reporter, people are dropping like flies. Mostly peaceful. So this ideologically freighted or loaded rhetoric is designed to immunize the left while putting maximum weight on the so-called offenses of the Trumpsters. Now, on the first glance, I was tempted to say, wow, this is the FBI finally, you may say, reluctantly dragging and screaming, producing a moment of honesty. But the FBI is not known for its honesty. And normally when they make a public admission like this, you have to ask, why are they doing it? Even if they thought it wasn't an insurrection, are they having a pang of conscience? We better say what it really is. I don't think so. I think what's really going on, and I'm not the only one, by the way. Here's Matt Gaetz. I just want to quote him from his tweet. "The game you're watching is not the game being played." He goes, "Today's narrative change is all about protecting FBI assets and militia groups who animated the criminality on January 6th. So what is Gaetz getting at? What he's getting at is he's saying that the FBI, now that their hand is in the cookie jar, and now that people are starting to ask questions like, what was your role, FBI, in January 6th? To what degree did you instigate this? To what degree did you provide planning materials? To what degree did you show where the exits are? To what degree did you provide funding and perhaps even instructions on what to do? The FBI does not want to go there. It wants to shut that whole line of inquiry down. One way to do that is to eliminate all investigations and examinations of coordination. Just say, okay, well, it's not a coordinated attack. It was kind of a one-off. So now we can just move ahead with the prosecutions of individual cases. Let's not really turn a spotlight to what we did. In a recent column, the columnist Glenn Greenwald said, look, with the FBI's role here, since we know now that the FBI infiltrated all these major so-called white supremacist groups, not really white supremacists, but nevertheless, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, the Three Percenters, the FBI was in all of them. So either they knew January 6th was coming and they did nothing, they were so incompetent, such losers, they couldn't even stop an attack that they knew about, either that, or, more likely, they were in on it, they were part of it, they were themselves pushing it, and given the history of the FBI, I think we know which of those two options is more likely. And so, on the one hand, while this is a welcome public admission, it seems to me pretty clear that the FBI's public acknowledgement now that January 6th was not a coordinated attack is kind of a tacit admission